Part 92. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 921. I don't know how long it took. Yan Ji opened his eyes and turned to one side, and Len Buting saw the white people sitting beside him, scared to the ground. Fortunately, she reacted in the midway of the fall, and she struck back on the trunk again. He stared at the man with a very surprised look. Little dumb, why are you here, in the middle of the night? You wear such a white dress with a green roof, do you know how terrible you are? You really want to scare me, you? Little dumb face stared blankly at the words. It seemed that she knew nothing about it, and knew he was terrible. Yanj reached out and wanted to rub the wig on top of his head and try to rub it off. But to the man's eyes without emotion, she turned around in the air and pulled the man's sleeve instead. Soft voice Jiaoman asked, "Hey, dumb, have you been following me all the time?" Without waiting for the man to speak, Yanj leaned his head close to him, and her heart shuddered like leaves falling in the wind, but she looked at him with shame. "Little dumb, do you like me?" She leaned on his shoulder, and the hot breath blew into his ear as he spoke. The man froze, a hint of redness appeared on the tip of his ears, but there was a trembling death in his eyes. Yanj didn't dare to face him again, playing with his hairy sleeves down, and shyly shouting, "I look so good, it's normal for you to like me, but men like women don't just keep talking to how much more needs to be done behind her." The man blinked, and the confusion flashed in his eyes. Yanj's hand was clinging to the burr on his sleeve. "Little dumb, do you like me now? Do you really like me at first sight? Or do I like me because I knit a hat for you and think I am not only beautiful but also clever? Little dumb, what kind of thing do you like about me? You talk about you like me so easily, will you like other beautiful girls in the future? However, as beautiful as I am, there is only one in this world, and you miss it and you are gone. Little dumb, your vision is so good." After finishing the words, Su suddenly said, holding his face with both hands, holding his face to himself, face to face, "Little dumb, then I will allow you to like me." After a pause, the soft voice said softly, "Since you like me, would you like to kiss me?" The two were so close that when she spoke, the hot breath slammed on his face, so that he felt at this moment that only the fine fluff on his face seemed to be shaking and standing upright. Yanj feels that the next time he maintains this posture, he will be smashed into fragments by the strong aura of this man the next moment. So she didn't wait for him to respond, decisively stepped up, and kissed him on the face. The murderous air came from all directions like a storm. After Yanj kissed him, he wanted to be shy and turned his head too fast when he turned his head, and fell down under the tree, shouting in fright. So he took advantage of the situation and avoided those murderous spirits. Of course, a man would not save her. When she was about to land, a carp stood up and stood on the ground, staring at the man with her hands on her hips, raising her head angrily. "Little dumb, why don't you pull me?" After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 922. Little dumb didn't respond. Yanj continued with indignation, "Little dumb, at this time, you should take advantage of my waist and hold me in your arms." The two of us gazed at each other in the air for 2 or 3 turns, and then there were petals falling. Background falls. Seeing that guy was still sitting on the trunk, Yan Ji rushed up to sit next to him and asked angrily, "Remember what I said?" Little dumb didn't speak, and Yan Ji glared at him, glaring at him, his eyes were red, and he aggrievedly asked, "Did you really like me? If you don't like your mother, just stay away from it. Can't you stay away from your mother?" The old lady's heart has been shaking, Nima. It was almost shaking into a pile of boneless mud. Yan Ji reached out his hand, and went to pinch his sleeve again. The white, smooth hair of his sleeve had been messed up by her, and she seemed to have not felt yet, and dragged his sleeve to wipe her obviously tear-free eyes. "Little dumb, although I'm very sad this time, but I can't cry at all. If you dare to do this next time, I will definitely cry to you. I tell you, I can cry for 3 days and 3 nights and drown you with tears. You like me, you have to be nice to me. It can only be nice to me. When I am sad, I have to find a way to coax me, such as sending me a flower, or giving me something I like, but I have never been able to coax me, instead of leaving me alone. She looked up and stared at him. Little dumb, remember. A pair of watery eyes were wet, just like the newborn cub, humming, grieved and bewildered, and only looked at him with dependence on his face. The man moved. He tilted his head slightly, leaned against her, and touched his lips on her face. It's like she just kissed him just now. Yan Ji's heart was pounding, jumping fast. She almost jumped out of her chest and got out of her throat. The man seemed to notice the strangeness of the words, and the corners of his lips were slightly raised, and his hands were in the position of the words. Before he lifted his eyes, Yan's hand suddenly gripped his neck, his lips touched his lips, and his tongue swept twice, as if dissatisfied, and stretched out again, trying to get into his mouth. The man's brow frowned slowly. The bottom of my eyes was so blank and disgusted. However, he didn't push away the song. Even after that swath of aversion, her lips and teeth loosened and she was allowed to enter her territory. A kiss or a deep kiss, the whole process is the words of song leading the situation. However, a slap cannot be shot, and a single person cannot create that kind of stormy, passionate picture. The man did not respond to her at all. Sad. This guy must be a 10,000-year-old virgin, or the kind of 10,000-year-old virgin who will live alone forever. This guy needs to discuss with the chicken. Yan Ji couldn't make a spark, so he stepped back in time, stared at the man and laughed, and the voice gradually grew louder. The laughing shoulder was shaking. She seemed to be unable to stabilize her figure. She could only rest her head on his shoulder and nestled in his arms. Little dumb, do you say that kiss is so kissed? Just now you are. What's it like? I do auntie know what this guy feels like. Anyway, I think I have split into two people now, one screams on the verge of death and collapses at any time, and the other is stupid and mentally retarded. The mental retardation is extreme. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 923. Little Dumb would certainly not respond to the song. Not even an affectionate look. For the first time, I felt a deep sense of frustration. Yanj feels that he needs to go to Juwei for a lesson. The atmosphere of silence is terrible. There is always an illusion of murderousness throughout the body, so without waiting for the man to respond, Yanj tilted his head and said, Little Dumb, I think my heart is almost coming out. It must be. I am so nervous. I'll be familiar with it in the future. How about you? How is your heartbeat? For the first time, a dangerous thing was hooked up like a mental retardation. The words were understood, and there was really no lower limit for people to talk about in critical times. Although this is a one-man show by herself, she still sings vividly, making herself completely into the play. I really want to give myself a playful pennant. Yan Ji bowed his head and pressed his cheek against the man's chest. The fox fur clothes worn on this guy's face were soft and warm, and it felt good. Yanj could not help but stunned. After finishing it again. The fox fur on this guy is too comfortable and he can avoid the pressure he puts on her. Yanj simply hugged his waist, sitting himself in his arms, and put his hands on her waist again. Little Dumb, your arms are so warm, I want to be held by you. Keep sleeping, you have to hold me tight. The man's hand was stiff at first, but later he realized that the person in his arms was breathing long and seemed to really fall asleep before he put his hand on her waist. Her loin was soft and hot, and she gradually became infected, and his palms were hot. He dropped his eyes and stared at her face. She wasn't ugly, but she wasn't the kind of beautiful she was. However, she is narcissistic, she feels that she is the best in the world. Really narcissistic and ignorant. She just kissed him just now. The other hand couldn't help but want to touch her lips. He had just tasted the sweetness and tenderness in her mouth, which was a strange place. But after moving his fingers, he immediately froze again. The next moment in his awkward face was replaced by a desireless indifference. Yan Song is almost afraid of death. Even if he didn't want to die, he was poked into a sieve by this guy's pervasive murderous spirit. She feels that if she is in love with this man now, that's the most devoted and heavy relationship in history. It's all about falling in love while holding your head. She also admires her skills, which are about to hang up, and can even be stingy. Mother, I really hope it works. She's scared to die. Feeling useless at all, Bai blinded her flourishing beauty. Under this pressure, Yan Ji could not fall asleep even if her head got into the water, so she could only seal off her spirits and tremble in a dark corner deep in one's consciousness. Obviously on her own side, and knew that the guy could not enter here, but she still did not dare to scold her mother, only kept her lips silent. It must be impossible to fall asleep, so a little bit of time counts. After a short time, Yan yawned and woke up and saw that she was still in the man's arms. She was like a little beast, her forehead was rubbed against the man's chin, and her man's cheek was rubbed. As a result, her face caught on the man's face. Little dumb, you are so comfortable in your arms, I really want to be held like this for a lifetime. I really wanted to part ways with him immediately, how far to go? After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 924. There is no lower limit for a woman's mouth. The soft voice of the song murmured, as if there was sugar in the mouth, and the words spoken were soft and sweet. Holding her arms around, she accidentally touched his lips. As if sucked, Yan Ji's eyes widened, and he looked at him with some shyness and some confusion, but didn't mean to go any further. It may be because she just woke up, the corners of her eyes glowed red, and her long eyelashes fluttered in her big eyes, she was extremely ignorant and harmless. There was still no trace of emotion on his face, the facial features were like sculptures, and there would be no other subtle expressions at all. Why not move? Why not move? Last time, she stuck her tongue out. Yan Ji blinked again, then opened his mouth and bit his lips slightly. Little dumb, I feel like I'm hungry. With that said, she had rubbed her belly, I always feel empty in my abdomen, so I want to eat something. She frowned and looked around, and said to herself, but there doesn't seem to be anything for me to eat here. At the end of the story, it was extremely grieving, I knew this place didn't even have food, and I wouldn't come. But just after this, he suddenly turned his head around the man's neck, and said with a smile, I still have to come, and I won't be able to touch the little dumb. After speaking, I kissed the man's lips again, and quickly retracted his head into the man's arms, always feeling that the pressure on the man was even more terrible. She's dying. The sky was white, and the castle not far away, the thick gate opened rumblingly. As soon as the gate was opened, many people went out one after another. Yanj thinks that her black dress is still low-key, but the white fox fur dress of the man around her will become the object of attention no matter where she stands. Of course, the most eye-catching thing about a man is to count the feathers on the man's head. Right, Yanj now names it Bai Tongtian. So eyes narrowed as more and more people went out of the city. Yan Ji pulled the man's sleeve, we are sitting here too proud, you hold me down. Fearing that the man was too rude, she pulled his sleeve and squeezed his neck tightly with both hands, so as not to fall down halfway. The man hugged her and fluttered to the ground. Yanj took his arm in his favor, stomped his feet on his cheek, and kissed him, Xiao Bai is so good. Just treat her a little, and immediately turn the little dumb appellation into a sweet and greasy white. The man didn't respond. He thought she was going to enter the city, but she formed a spherical cover around with fairy spirit, and then sacrificed a round bed. She lay back on her own and rolled back and forth a few times, squinting and sighing comfortably, and then waved at him again, "Little white, lie down and rest for a while." The man looked at this bed, which looked clean, but did not fit his aesthetic at all. After all, he did not embarrass himself, letting her summon a few times, still standing still. Yanj laughed softly, and didn't continue to summon him to go to bed, but erected Erlang's legs and shook his feet. Her feet were white and tender, very small. The heads of several small toes were like white pearl grains. He lowered his eyes and retracted his eyes, but the tips of his ears turned red again. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 925. Yanj seemed to be unaware of the man, and she asked the man lightly, "Little white, what kind of world do you live in?" Knowing that he was a dumb, he would not answer, so he sighed after asking the words, saying, "The world I used to live in is beautiful, there are a lot of delicious beasts, and there are a lot of delicious birds. Lie down and stretch out your hands for a baiu, you can beat down the birds in the sky and eat them. The birds are deliciously roasted. You can't eat enough to eat them, and the fish in the water." She whispered that a lot of it was delicious. The man moved forward, step by step, and gradually, he got closer to the words of the song. "But it's boring to eat, there is nothing worth remembering." He was very upset in his heart, but he kept moving, getting closer and closer to the mouth she was talking to. "Since I got to this broken place, I haven't eaten anything, and I was almost eaten by the swallowing beast. When I think about it, I feel aggrieved. Good regret, good people do'n't do it, they have to spend it with a lot of energy. I ran this broken place to serve others dishes. There are more than 100 people locked up with me. Those people are just like me, Xiaobai. How can you say that people in this divine realm are so cruel? They are also human. Why do we become in their eyes livestock? They were afraid of swallowing the beasts, so they used this method to exchange their lives, but they never thought about it. Sooner or later, our ascendants will disappear completely. What kind of method will they use to exchange their lives? They must be each other. Kill. I really hope they kill each other quickly. Well, I don't know if I can live until then." "Xiaobai, you can't speak, and you're bald, have you been abandoned by them for this reason? You look so good that they are all willing to abandon, and wait for me to help you heal your baldness. At that time, you will have a long hair and blind their dog eyes." Yanj didn't even know what he was talking about. However, she had to speak, and instead of speaking, she diverted her attention. She was afraid that she would be lost in the oppression he brought to her. "Xiaobai, I'll take you back to my little world in the future. Although there is no immortal spirit in the world, but where is life much better than here?" She sat up sharply and held his neck with a smile. "Xiaobai, I will protect you by that time, and I will knit countless wigs for you, all kinds of which will make you change to a new style every day." After speaking, as if remembering something, I reached out to him and said, "Xiaobai, let's change to a new hairstyle today, red or yellow. In fact, the 7-colored one looks good too. You look good and wear everything." The man stood still and did not mean to take out the wigs. She forgot a process, she hasn't kissed him yet. Yan Ji stared at him with suspicion, staring at the corners of his eyes turned red, and he was sad and sad. "Xiaobai, wouldn't you just throw away all the wigs I worked so hard for, right? Sadness is really sad, sadness is really sadness, you don't need to pretend at all." When she was knitting these wigs, he looked at them. Knitting one's hair was not only difficult, he felt that most people could not do it. So after a short hesitation, his eyes dropped slightly, and the red wig appeared in front of Yanj. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 926. Words burst into tears and laughed. You are so funny to me, it's too bad. Nausea, but I really want to kill this guy. Hemp eggs, go on like this, she will be schizophrenic. Reaching out to grab the red wig, Yanj stood up, took off Bai Tongtian from his head, and took off the white wig. Then he put the red wig on his bald head, and finally re-put Bai Tongtian on. A red-haired man, even if he is still wrapped in fox fur, the temperament seems to change instantly. Become a little bit grounded, a little bit rough. Yan Ji held his cheek and kissed him on the cheek. Xiao Baide looks good and looks so good. This is going to go out and I don't know how many women will be lost. Xiao Bai, rest assured, now that you are my man, I will protect you from now on, and no one will dare to bully you. Don't look at me Jiao Didi, I'm terrible. The man was as expressionless as ever. Yanj pecked his lips again. You obediently wait for me here, okay, I will come back later. If you are sleepy, lie in bed for a while. If you are bored, play with your own hair. I will return soon La. After she said that, he reluctantly let go of his cheek, and when he jumped out of bed, the boots on his feet appeared the next moment. Yan Ji's luck was very good. This was the first morning he waited, and the carriage carrying the ascended men slowly drove out of the gate. She thought she would wait for a few days. A black dress changed into a white skirt when she walked out of the woods. Her figure gradually disappeared, and she seemed to vanish into nothingness until she jumped onto the carriage, and the two men sitting in front of the carriage did not notice the presence of songs. The two were not catch up on the first day, so they didn't take this kind of task seriously, and they talked about each other. One said, I don't know how much that guy will eat this time. I hope I can eat less and run out of stock. I have seen Sarang during this period. The squads who hit the jungle have almost all returned empty-handed recently. When it comes to returning empty-handed, do you know the recent rumors inside the Feng clan? I heard that one of the ascended people has mutated and used us Protoss as a tonic. The short one said, I don't think it's possible. Look at these ascenders. One by one, they are similar to meat bugs. They can mutate. To what extent they can mutate? Maybe it is those who can't catch the ascension. This is the lie that can't be accomplished. Without waiting for another person to interface, he also said, these people are really boring. They preached those meat bugs so powerfully. Tell me, who would believe such things is like a joke? The short man kept expressing his views on the matter, and it took a while to realize that the people around him were silent, so he turned his head and asked him, what do you think? I don't think it's possible. This time, without waiting for the short interface, he said again and again, but I have a friend I know is Fengzhu. He was on the scene at the time, and he's less repaired now. There is no difference from the waist. To the dwarf's surprised and suspicious eyes, the man lowered his voice and continued, this is true. Although we are unlikely to encounter it, we must also be vigilant. When outside, we still have to be careful. You must run when you meet that kind of ascendant. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 927. The short man still didn't believe it. Is it true? How is this possible? I didn't lie to you, my friend. He's gone in this life, and the family will definitely not ask him for another officer. Alas, I don't know if he can stand up after this. The carriage is driven by the spirit of the fairy, so it is particularly fast. The two men were just talking. The carriage had left the city gate far behind. After another walk, the carriage flew into the air and flew fast. The dwarf gnawed for a long time before looking at the people around him. How could this kind of meat bug attack us, let alone so powerful? You said, did that guy have a cub? As soon as this idea came out, both people saw fear in each other's eyes. It was also at this time that the two of them seemed to have a sense of heart, and both turned their heads and looked back. Yan Song appeared in the center of the two of them, holding the two shoulders with both hands, and with a little effort, they repaired most of them. In the screams of two people, Yan Song threw people off the carriage. She drove the carriage around a lot of bends, and finally parked the carriage on a hill, and banned it all around, which opened all the cages on the carriage. Here are 10 cages, that is, 10 ascenders. Yanj introduced his identity and briefly talked about the state of the divine realm he knew. The 10 people added what they knew again, and everyone looked at the song with gratitude and help. I did not expect that the so-called divine realm is so extinct. We must find a way to let those who are immortals in the small world know this place. Things, we should not let them themselves again. Yes, let's find Jehu to leave here and tell our companions what's going on here. Yanj waited for them to finish, then said, this so-called divine realm can only enter and cannot go out. As soon as she spoke, everyone around her was silent. I don't know who shouted, since I can't get out, fight with these people, I don't believe I can't fight them. No one agreed with him. Everyone was able to reach the step of becoming a god, all of them have gone through numerous ordeals, and their exercised mind is steady and firm. It is not their temper to take the liberty. Because of this, they know very well the gap between their strength and the natives of the divine realm. Fighting is absolutely impossible, maybe not even a finger of those natives. They used to be hegemons in the realm, but now they are sad, but ridiculous. No one expected that the soaring of the heart and mind would later be delivered to others as food. I still have to fight, but not now. Yan Ji glanced at everyone and said slowly, I have a more adventurous way. If we succeed, we will have a fight. If we don't succeed, everyone may dead. As soon as this word came out, the only girl among the 10, the woman named Zi said, we are not fighting now but we are also dead. Even if we fight for only 1/10 of the way of life, everyone will be willing to say, sister, you saved our life, you know better than us what kind of world this is, and you have no choice but to say that everyone is in this situation. It is not a matter of fear of death. This is a showdown between the natives of God and the ascendants. They have no choice but to go forward for themselves and for later generations. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 928. The host in this plane has the same surname as Yanj. Before the ascension, he was called the Supreme Lord Kwei, but now in the realm of God, although the bunch in front of them are all Supreme Masters, from the perspective of the natives of the realm, they not even caterpillars. So when they first introduced themselves, everyone reported their names they had forgotten for years. The host has the same surname as Yanj. The host who seems to be strong has a very ladylike name, Yan Yan. Several people went from death to life together, so they all darted to sing and sing. In fact, everyone knows that the lives present to this day are considered thousands of years old fairies, and they have nothing to do with young people. Everyone is waiting for Yanj to speak. Obviously, they are all looking forward to it. Yanj thought for a while and said, the spirit of the gods in this world is very strong, but our bodies cannot be cultivated here because we have anti-tempered the meridians before entering a new world as before. We have to fight. At the very least, we must have the strength to fight. The basic condition for obtaining strength is to first find those vitality waters that can be used to train meridians. As soon as this word came out, everyone was epiphany. Everyone is promoted from a small world. I know that every time I enter a new plane, there will be a vital energy pool for everyone to train meridians to adapt to the aura in the new world. So what everyone has to do now is to find the aura pool of the divine realm. But in places like the aura pool, generally people will guard it, and the people in the divine realm do not plan to let them ascension train their meridians. Even if the aura pool is there, it is a question of being destroyed by the people in the divine realm. Where to find the energy pool is another big question. Yan Ji glanced at the restless people. We are too unfamiliar with the realm of God, and even if there is such a place as aura of energy, there are usually some people holding hands. Now we can't grab it if we want to grab it? After a pause, she also said, but I have a way to improve the physique with elixir and expand the meridian so that I can practice in this divine realm, but this way will be very painful, and there will be sequelae. Needless to say, every process is painful. When the second immortal enters the body, these immortal spirits will also feel anxious. Seeing everyone talking, Yan Ji raised his hand slightly and signaled everyone to be quiet. Very painful, I have experienced it myself, although I know that everyone has come through countless lives and deaths now. The pain is completely tolerable. However, this kind of pain is not pain in the general sense, and it will continue. Each practice is a kind of torture that is not as good as death. I hope everyone will think clearly. Her words were tense, and all 10 of them made no sense. Even struggling in the pain of life is better than losing the dignity of being a meat worm. Yanj took out a piece of jade jane from the void and handed it to the only one of the 10 pharmacists. Yao Lao, look at the refining method of this medicine and the medicinal materials needed. Everyone must have some medicinal materials in hand. Hope you can give it to the old man and let the old man see what medicines are available. After the arrangement was completed, Yan Ji said, this place can't stay long. Let's find a medicine in the forest first. The words of song caused several people to get back into the cage and get on the carriage. Although the cage and the carriage were plain, there were various restraints on the cage and the carriage, which could prevent those from the divine world from searching for these ascendants on the carriage. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 929. Everyone is not as good as even the words of the gods, but of course, the most important thing is that everyone's consciousness cannot be put out, so find a big forest to find herbs in it. The words of song. Yanj took everyone into a forest where the consciousness could not sweep to the end. I thought that the so-called divine realm had no birds and beasts. As soon as it entered the forest, it was almost a nameless warcraft. The entire army of attack was wiped out. These people around me can't shake even a hair of warcraft. Fortunately, the repair of Yanj is not a top-notch, but it is nothing to deal with such a warcraft. Dig out the magic core in the body of warcraft and give it to the old custody. Due to security considerations, the group did not continue to go deep into the forest, and found a hillside with a relatively high geographical location. Yan Ji killed all the provocative warcraft around him. Those who have the magical world of battle formation immediately deployed the battle formation around them. Each of the 10 people has their own strengths, and several people cooperate silently with each other. Even if there is no help, they endure the emptiness of the body and deliver the aura in the body to others. Today, everyone is a grasshopper on a boat. I know that in this situation, we must be united regardless of you and me. Yanj cleared the threats around him, and then brought back a magic core for everyone to study. She sat beside herself and meditated and looked around. Everyone's mustered space is still there, and at this step of ascension, everyone has at least 3 or 4 mustered spaces, and materials such as herbs are countless. Everyone needed the medicines in Yujian, but they were enough. Therefore, after Yao Lao swallowed a few auras that everyone gathered for him, he sacrificed his own medicine stove and began to make alchemies. At this time, no 1 minute can be delayed. Everyone is very tacit, leaving 2 people to protect the old law. The others are constantly around or line up, or cloth sign. No one is idle. Soon after, Yanj suddenly stood up. The next moment, she turned to the crowd and said, there is a group of people outside. They are heading here, and I will go out to lead them away. As soon as she finished speaking, the Jianqiu who had not been able to help him stood up and said, "You can't go, I'm going, you are the backbone of everyone now. You can't leave, you must lead away, and I will lead away." He said nothing and stood up with two more people. "Let's go away." One of them said, "Little sister, you are now the hope of everyone, the hope of the Ascensionists and the immortals in the small world. We can all go wrong, but you can't do anything. These guys." Yan Ji suddenly thought of the time when the host tore the space, and the people in the car stood up to protect her. No one escaped, and no one was crying or timid. Everyone looked firm and calm. This is a group of firm and transparent people who have been polished by heaven. However, these people thought that they would become God's darlings and become gods, but did not want to be joked by heavens at the last moment. Not only did they not become gods, they also became worms slaughtered by others. Even so, they will not be timid and will not flinch. Looking at these people in front of him, Yanj felt that it might be the host's residual emotions, and his chest bulging was all hot and humid. "I'm going," Yan Ji said softly, "relax, I'll be fine. After my death, the villain blackened again." Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 930. Yan Song raised his head slightly and said, "Everyone left my life. They wanted me to fight with you and save my companions. Everyone has not been saved yet. How dare I die easily? I won't die." "You will not die, we will all live to the end," she remarked, turned, and walked outwards. "I reinforced another layer of fairy hood outside. If I do not die, this hood will not fall away. No matter what you encounter before, there is no absolute strength against these guys. Do nt leave the fairy hood." Seeing that Yanj was going out, the woman named Zi choked and said firmly, "You must come back." Yanji paused, without turning his head, but quickly came out of the fairy hood, and then disappeared out of thin air. The astronauts in the carriage Lyra are carried to that place, and there is no exception to this once a month. It is no ordinary thing that those ascended are taken away. There are more than 20 people in the divine realm who entered the forest, and Yanj can feel that each of them is above those whom she met before. Yanj's figure flew quickly, but between two breaths, the space around her was swaying. A man in a blue suit appeared beside her out of thin air, and a long sword in his hand thrust fiercely into Yanj's chest. Yanj took a step back, and the next moment there appeared a man with a big hammer in his hand and hit his head. However, for a moment, Yanj was surrounded by all sides. These people did not know what restrictions were placed in the surrounding space. Yanj did not want to escape. They could shuttle in space, but Yanj could not. Because of this, she was unable to tear through the void and escape into the cracks in space. For a moment, she could only passively dodge these people. These people treated Yanj as a big enemy, but they did not expect Yanj to be so unobtrusive and just met so soon that they became their uncles. So one of them smiled at the people around him and said, "I thought it was so powerful, but it turned out to be so weak that the bug would mutate and still be a bug." These words are not trivial, but they can be heard by the song. What was her body banned by that person? She wanted to get rid of it but could not help it. Even if ridiculed by these people, she can only continue to dodge. It was also at this time that a long sword pierced Yan's shoulder. Before Yanj had time to get the sword out of her body, another sledgehammer hit her knee. For a moment, she even heard the sound of a broken knee bone. As soon as the knees softened, they fell to the ground. Another person put a big net over Yanj's body, slapped his face in the void, and said with a fierce voice, "Say, where are those ascended?" In such a short time, all of Yanji's mouth spit out blood. She squinted and said nothing. These people are regarded as the elite guards in the clan. When they come out, they are going to find the car who is soaring, to see people alive, to see dead bodies. A wave of people searched for their tracks, and another waved the words and tortured her in various ways, trying to pry them out of her mouth. The existence of Yang is not considered personal at all. Naturally, they have no sympathy for Yang. But after a while of effort, Yang's body was broken by several bones, and his clothes were scattered, and the flesh was valgus. But even if these people use the soul attack, the words are all bite dead and do not speak. One of them suggested to the other, Hong brother, aren't you practicing the soul source mentality? Let's not have to work so hard, you can search, she's got her soul.